Hello, welcome to OLT 321, European Literature. My name is Warren Reed. Today we're going to get into main points from Lecture 8 on Dostoyevsky and his life and works. We're going to talk about 6 things. First, his place in Russian and world literature. 2, about the Dostoyevsky circle, Siberia and epilepsy. Marriage is topic 3. Number 4 is his preoccupation with money. 5 is the place of the double and notes of the underground, and 6, just a word or two about his death. So, without further ado, let's jump into his place in Russian and world literature. First of all, he's one of the greatest novelists ever. He wrote many books, including many famous books such as Brothers Karamazov, Crime and Punishment. He's known for his insights into human nature, and especially he's got a special focus on the criminal mentality and, you might say, abnormal psychology. He once wrote that his realism was the realism of the soul. So. You can read and decide for yourself. His works are, in the top 50 lists. I mean, his works are studied around the world, not just 1 or 2 books, but, many of his works. So he's really important and very famous. Okay, second topic real quick. The Dostoyevsky circle, Siberia and epilepsy. Okay, Russia was ruled by a czar, and they were kind of like kings, and they had all total power. And there were people who were against that, like in other places, against, this revolutionary spirit, against the absolute rule of kings and emperors. And so he joined that, and there was one called the Dostoyevsky circle. They were caught, and he was sentenced to death. And he was lined up with the others, about to get shot, when he was reprieved the sentence of death, and instead he was sent to Siberia for quite a long time. The cliche is maybe based on truth that Siberia is the place where Russians send all their prisoners. It's really a remote place, and the conditions are very tough. It's very cold in the winter. And not only that, the weather conditions, but also the conditions of life in the prison were very tough, and it seems the harsh conditions and possible beatings by guards may have caused the onset of his epilepsy. So this is the second author we've studied who's had epilepsy, and like Flaubert, the first one, it caused him to have a life of isolation. And so what did he do? Well, instead of just twiddling his thumbs, he twiddled his pencil and he started writing. Well, he continued writing. Gave him more time for writing. The third topic is marriage, and we're not going into huge details on that. He was married 3 times. Okay, the first wife couldn't stand his epilepsy, and the third wife, he was much older than her, and it was the lady who took his dictation. When instead of writing by this time, he's just talking, and the lady's writing it down for him. She's a stenographer. So he married her. She didn't mind his epilepsy. She supported him through thick and thin. And especially one time they were on holiday in France, and he had word that he was going to be searched by the special police. So he burned his manuscripts for novels that we have today, actually. So what happened was, his wife, secretly, she took his notes for those manuscripts and hid them. So when he returned home, he was able to, reconstruct those works. So the world owes a huge debt to his wife, Anna. Let's all have a moment of thanks to her. Asante. Now we talk about his preoccupation with money. He was always in debt, and often he was writing for money. Now, often with writers, if you're just writing for money, the quality is not so great, but somehow he managed to write great works despite that pressure. His big problem was gambling. He was always gambling, and his wife put up with it. She loved him, but she also noticed that whenever he lost, he came home and wrote like crazy. So in a way, maybe it was, somehow it was linked to his motivation or his inspiration, this pressure, the excitement, I don't know. But there it is. Next, the place of the double and notes of the underground. He wrote the double before his imprisonment, and it was part of his early works. said to be, before he developed his own particular style and focus. But it already shows his preoccupation with human psychology, as we'll find out. Notes from Underground comes from much later. It's after his imprisonment, but before he writes his great novel, Crime and Punishment. So it's from his, known as being from his mature period. Lastly, we'll talk about his death. You'll learn when we get to the poetry section about a Russian poet called Pushkin. He was really famous, and he was really important to Dostoyevsky. Anyway, years after his death, they created a monument in his honor, and on the day of the unveiling of the monument, Dostoyevsky gave a speech, but it was a very cold day, and he was a little bit an old man, so he caught cold, and he was sick for months, and he died a few months later. Ta-da! There we go. That's the end of Lecture 8. Those are the main points out of that lecture. Stay tuned before we jump into the details, the grit and gristle of the double and the notes from Underground in Lecture 9.